when I tell people that I remote view, they're not really like interested until I start telling them, but I've seen this, and this. And they're like, oh, details.
For someone who's never heard of remote viewing before, what is it?
Remote viewing is when you project your consciousness into another point in time and space. You can see what's there, you can hear what's there, you can like use your five senses to kind of feel around the area and remotely view, anywhere in time and space. Um, to do this, you have to quiet down the conscious mind so that the unconscious mind can come through and give you accurate results.
And how long have you been doing remote viewing, and how did you get into it?
I've been remote viewing for about 6 years now, and I got into it because I was already kind of into, I don't know what word I want to use, but like spirituality in a sense, kind of seeing more than what I'm shown in my everyday life. And so just being into that, I kind of put myself in places and spaces where I was surrounded by those people. And on a random day, I just so happened to meet Courtney. And he approached me and he was like, hey, have you ever thought about remote viewing? And I was like, nope. And he was like, can I show you? And I watched a lot of princesses or Yemi's things. And I watched Melina's stuff at the time. And I was like, that's really interesting. I would love to learn how to do that. And Courtney spent several months showing me. So I appreciate him for that.
Nice. And for the listeners, Courtney is Courtney Brown of the Farsight Institute, and that's how I came across Courtney Brown, and then that's how I came across you. And so, on to what you were just sharing. How long did it take you to learn, and what was that process like?
It took me about 9 months of showing up 3 days a week, spending about 2 to 3 hours every day, remote viewing random targets. Um, the first time I did it, I thought I was crazy. And I was like, I don't understand this. I'm seeing things, I'm hearing things, I'm writing it all down. I'm slightly frustrated because I do not know like anything,
Hmm.
And once I get to see the target afterwards, it made me feel like my abilities were actually like real,
Mm.
because I feel like when it comes to stuff like that, we all have our moments where we're like, is this true? Like, is this factual? But to show up 3 times a week and hit a new target every time and to be on target, it was really cool to see. And then the more you do it, the more you pick up. So the first time I might have only picked up that there were subjects and land and colors, and then the second time I've picked up like what the subjects looks like, what it smells like, all of that stuff. And it went from me having to do like 3 different sessions for one target to only having to do 2 sessions for one target to getting a lot of things written down just during the first session.
Wow. And to clarify for the listeners, and correct me if I'm wrong, in remote viewing, the target, the time or place or person that is desired to be remote viewed is not told to the remote viewer. It's um, it's almost given like a code name or a number, and it's visualized or thought of by the person giving you kind of the task and the target. So you don't know what the target is. You just go into it, and that's what you're explaining is at first that you were like, is this really real? Is this really work? And then as you saw that you were actually hitting the targets when you had no idea what they were, you actually realized that this was working.
Yes, correct. Yeah, it was even now it's a little frustrating because it's like I want to know what's there. I wish I just knew what the target was. And when I'm seeing things and like hearing things and writing it down, I even feel like none of this makes a lick of sense, makes no sense whatsoever. But then when I see the target and it's like, no, I was really on target there. Like, that's crazy. And it just helped me trust my intuition more too, because a lot of it is intuitiveness for you to
Mm.
feel what a man would feel like when you're remote viewing, you know what I mean, or feel like what a woman feels like, to feel what energetics feel like. So a lot of the beginning stages is you feeling things out and coming to a personal understanding of what things at the target site feel like, look like, smell like to you.
Mm. And how long does it take in the session to get there and get into it? And then how long is the process of like observing it?
It probably takes about 5 to 10 minutes to get into it, and then you spend a good hour observing and moving around the target site.
Wow. What's the most difficult thing that you found with remote viewing?
The most difficult thing for me is subjects. I think that it's kind of hard for me to see full blown faces. I'll see aspects of a face. So I know, like, I get frustrated when they're asking me, like, what does this subject look like? I'm like, I don't, they got a beard and they got glasses. That's about all I can see. Well,
Mm.
look deeper. What's on their head? Because then sometimes you can, like, actually touch the top of your head and feel things. So it's like, I'll touch and I'm like, there's nothing there. Or I'll touch again and I'm like, oh, wait, no, there is something there. It feels kind of hard or it feels a little soft. So I would say remote viewing subjects has been really difficult, and like their emotions as well, because I feel like a lot of subjects that we remote view are extraterrestrial and they're really good at hiding their emotions, um, or not being emotional at all. So to really dig deeper down is also pretty challenging because you want to just collect surface level stuff, but that's we're here to show that you can do more than just see that the sky is blue and there's subjects there. I can dive deep into your mind and feel exactly how you feel and hear your thoughts and stuff like that. So that is the hardest part for me personally.
And when you've tapped into that, what is it like? Are you like feeling their mind? Do you lose yourself? I'm trying to like imagine what that's like.
Sometimes you can. Like, I know sometimes I get caught up in people's emotions. So like I start to feel like if
Mm.
they feel anxious, like I feel anxious. If they feel upset, like I can see I'm at my desk, like,
Can you see their memories?
can I see their memories?
Yes.
Not necessarily like their memories, but you can kind of go into a different moment of their life, if that makes sense. So it's like I may not be able to go into your memory and see what your childhood is like, but I can be like, what was this person like as a child? And then tap into that.
So are you tapping into their perception of a specific time and place?
Yeah.
Okay. Their sense perception or just their overall consciousness perception of that time and place.
Yes. Exactly how they're feeling, what they're thinking in that moment of time.
Okay. And you kind of described it a little bit already, but when you're seeing it, is it like a dream? Is it like a movie screen? Is it how fine is the detail? Is it like fuzzy images? Are you seeing it?
No, it's more like feelings and senses and thoughts that kind of will hit you. So it's like I'll feel anxious and I'll feel unsafe or something, you know what I mean? And so I won't see that the subject is looking anxious, but I can tell that right now in this moment, this subject is anxious,
Right. And
if
and
that
just
makes sense.
yes, definitely. And to clarify, my question was actually about not about necessarily subjects, but like a scene,
Okay,
a
yeah, it's
place.
even the scene, you'll catch a, I'll catch a sound of something, I'll see a light, um, I'll feel the subjects inside inside of a structure. So it's not like I close my eyes and I can see myself. Now, some remote viewers are different. Some remote viewers say that they see themselves floating above and they can see everything down.
Hmm.
Me personally, that's not how that works for me.
Yeah.
I'm more so, I'm just like, I'm there. I can hear what's around me. I can kind of see what's around me, but it's very hazy,
Mm.
and it's very clouded in a sense. So I do have to kind of focus on things individually.
Nice. Thanks for clarifying that. And do you suspect that the more you practice, that you might see more clearer? It might be more refined, or I don't know, do you think about that at all?
I don't think about that.
Yeah, you just
I
in the
do know
moment.
just like with my people that I work with, one of them does say that she can like see everything like that. And she has been remote viewing for like, I think 7, 8 years or 10 years, something like that, longer than I have. And she says that she can see things very vividly. I don't see things vividly. I personally think that it's like each person remote views in their own way, because we
Mm,
used to have someone who would, she would call it astral project, but she would like leave her body and then come back and then like start just writing everything down all at once.
mm. Yeah, that makes sense. I was just listening to somebody talk earlier today who was part of a remote viewing program when they were younger, and they were saying for them, it actually wasn't visual at all. They would just know the answer kind of thing.
Yeah, it'll just, you can literally like hear it almost in your head, or it's almost like a thought of your own. So it's like you had the thought, but you didn't really have the thought.
Mm,
It was a perception that was brought into your unconsciousness.
wow. Fascinating. What do you enjoy the most about remote viewing?
I really enjoy like digging deeper into things that maybe we don't know all the details about. So I love when we do projects where maybe on the outside in it's just a regular event that has happened, but then we as remote viewers can see things that are more behind the scenes. So I'd be like, I mean, yeah, it wasn't. You can just like randomly pick one. Like when we did the 9/11 remote viewing,
Mhm,
yeah, I could have just been remote viewing and been like, oh, there's buildings and fire, non-surface structures. But then it's like, no, like I see things within the building that are set up, you know what I mean? And they look like they were placed there prior to with the way that the structure fell and the way that I could kind of feel those things exploding as the structure fell. So
mm,
I think that like, from the outside looking in, somebody's going to tell you that's not what happened, that's not what they told us. And I'll
mhm.
be like, well, okay, I saw something else. I saw other things going on in that moment. And I really love that aspect of remote viewing.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean. When I've thought about this, and I wanna ask you about this actually a little later, but, and we'll get back to it, but when I think about remote viewing and how it's from my research, which is ongoing, but there's already been a lot of verified studies, and it's been used in the military. So, I think about the future, and I think about when it's more of a known thing that it's an accurate, reliable method and process, it could be a way for the people to actually get the truth on things that are really secret and so hidden from us, which we can't do anything about it now. It's like we can get documents, we can get people's testimony, but there's still always this line where it's like, how do we really know what happened? And so what you were just sharing, is what kind of excites me about the potential of it.
Right. Yeah, that's really when I tell people that I remote view, they're not really like interested until I start telling them, but I've seen this, and this. And they're like, oh, details. And I love the details too of remote viewing. So I guess that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I love it. And so how accurate have you found your sessions in the reports to be so far in your journey?
I find them to be pretty accurate as far as things that like we can absolutely identify and things that are for sure and for certain. So, like I know I just did one over the president of forget. wherever that attack happened recently.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like remote viewing like their president and then like their higher up military personnel. And when I described them and I drew the pictures of them, I was like, man, these look like just regular generic people. But then when they're like, this is what this guy looks like, I drew the beard, the glasses, the hat, the outfit. I could even tell that he was in a position like of power. He felt respected. He felt like he had personnel around him that was there to protect him, and that he was well known within the eyes of the people. And so just to know that that's what I've written down, that's what I have found, and I can verify that. I can Google it and it's right there. It's very accurate. When it comes to like the other details and stuff like that, like, feelings and emotions, that's when I'm kind of just like, I still feel like I'm pretty accurate when it comes to those, but those always have room for um, it just leaves room for like people to kind of make up their own things. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to emotions, it's not really verifiable how someone feels. So people can kind of fill that gap in. But verifiable things, I'm on target. I feel good about it.
Yeah. Do you find that there's a difference in the accuracy or in the difficulty between doing something, say, present moment, past, or future?
No, I
So
feel
for
like
you, it's all the same.
I feel like it's all the same. Yeah.
Okay. I remember one of the army guys who spoke, I forget his name, but he was saying for him and in his understanding, the future was more difficult because there's many different potential timelines that could manifest, so sometimes it's not as accurate. Whereas if you're looking back at the past at a specific timeline, it's more accurate, but I guess
Yeah,
that's
I
different.
mean, that's true in general, like in a general sense. We can never really predict the future. We can kind of feel where the future is going. And sometimes, most of the time, though, we are on target. I think we have like an 85 or 86% accuracy for future targets that we've
Mhm,
done. So
mhm.
we're pretty accurate too. But I do agree with that. The future does change. You can't really detect everything for the future. So I do agree with that as well. But I feel like personally, I'm still pretty much, for the most part, on target.
Nice. So how do you use your remote viewing abilities today? Are you regularly working at the Farsight Institute? Are you doing other things? Or
Yeah, I use my remote viewing strictly for Farsight. I don't do outside projects. I did do a couple of projects like outside before for people who kind of wanted, most of the time people want to know like future things. Um, and I did do that for a little bit, but then I was just starting to feel like I'm in no position to dictate or tell someone the future. I don't
yeah.
want to do that. So I just stopped doing that. But I only remote view with Courtney at Farsight.
And how many days do you do that a week or roughly?
Probably two times a week.
Nice. So how do you want to I guess this kind of leads to another question, but how do you want to use your remote viewing abilities now and perhaps in the future?
Now, in a sense, I use my remote viewing abilities to kind of project my consciousness around. So I find myself kind of feeling for situations, even ideas. Like I'll just use getting a job as an example.
Mm,
Maybe I apply to some jobs and I'm like using my remote viewing skills to kind of feel it out. I'm like, I applied to that job, but I'm probably not going to hear back from them. Or like I apply to one job and there's just something like right here in my chest that's like, no, that dude's going to call. And they do call. And then
mm,
the ones who don't call, they really don't be calling. And
mm.
so
So
I
you
thought
can
that was
save
cool.
some time. You got some practical uses for it.
Exactly. Or sometimes I'll kind of like, if I want to tap into other people, because sometimes I will tap into other people, be like, how are they feeling? Like, what are they doing right now? and checking up on my friends like in the ether. So I'm like, how is she? And if I feel something off, I'm like, nah, I need to text her. So I'll text her. They'll usually be like, oh, like, yeah, I've been going through some things. I was like, I can feel it. I can feel it.
Wait, so did you remote view me to see if this interview would be okay? Or
I kind of did. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I tapped in real quick. I was like, is this a real thing? Is this just somebody just trying to, make a random video on a Tuesday? And then something in my chest was like, nah, trust him. Trust him. And I was like, okay, should be a good time. And it has been a good time.
Cool. I'm glad. What do you believe are the implications of remote viewing for humanity as a whole if the skill becomes more widespread? Like, how could this change human life if more and more people know they can do this, know it's real, and start doing it?
I think that it will allow a lot of us to kind of see the truth and see things for what they actually are and not be manipulated by the media or by people in positions of power. And that is the biggest thing for me, is that now I feel like I'm pretty certain and sure about a lot that happens. And when I feel unsure, I feel like it's for a reason. And so I think that if everyone, if a lot of the population knew and learned how to remote view, it would be a real like it would just be changing life, like altering, because you can't just sit here and tell me whatever you want to tell me and I just got to believe it because I tapped in, I remote viewed, I saw that. That's not, you're not being honest with me. So I personally believe that it'll help all these people in positions of power trying to control the reality of the masses. I think that that'll lessen and it'll allow us as people who aren't up there,
Mm.
to be able to see life and see everything for what it is and just have some truth finally, instead of just all of us banking that somebody over here can just tell me about what happened in the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it. I do. It's really like a bypassing mechanism,
Cuts
where
out
we.
the middleman.
Yeah. Can you tell us what the Farsight Institute is and what their mission is?
So the Farsight Institute is a database basically where we do have all the tools and material necessary to learn how to remote view. So that's our big thing, is that we've made everything free. We want people to learn how to remote view for sure. You can get online, get on our website, download the free template. He has a video that'll show you kind of what you need to be doing as well, give you targets for you to practice on. And that is kind of what Farsight does, the institute sense of it. A lot of my other coworkers, they teach so that you can have more of that one-on-one, because it is easier to learn with somebody there kind of proctoring and watching you. And so you learn faster. Um, and that's also one of our goals, is just to teach anybody who wants to learn that they can do it, and how remote viewing can enhance your existence.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that anybody can learn how to do this. You don't have to be innately psychically talented or gifted. Anyone could learn this. Is that true?
it's very true. You just have to have an open mind and believe. If you have an open mind and believe that you are capable, you can do it. And that's a big thing too, because a lot of people will mentally shut down. I even mentally shut down when I first started. Like, I remember getting so frustrated, and Courtney, the whole process was frustrating because I'm like, is this right? Like, is this here? And he's like, just keep going, just keep writing it down. I'm like, I'm about to leave. There's so many times where I wanted to quit learning remote viewing because I just didn't believe in myself and my capabilities. And now can't tell me nothing.
Nice. What are some of the most memorable remote viewing sessions that you've done at Farsight?
Um, for me, it was definitely the 9/11 attacks. because that was the first one that I did that I started taking this seriously. Because at first it was like remote viewing beaches. I remote viewed D-Day, and like D-Day was also a big one for me because I just remember seeing all the bodies on the beach, and then seeing like the big cliff, and then seeing the people on top, and me being like, I don't know what I'm watching, but it looks like a war scene. And then to know that was what I was looking at, it was really interesting to see all the things behind the 9/11. Even what was that? The Pentagon. The
Mm,
Pentagon. When I remote viewed with the Pentagon, that changed my whole perspective on that day.
yeah,
So that was a big one for me. That was a big one for me.
that's awesome. And for the listeners, there's a Farsight has a website. It's called Farsight Prime, and you can actually watch a bunch of their library of videos of these remote viewing sessions where a target's picked, the viewers don't know what it is, and then you can watch all these different viewers and report what they're seeing, and it's really cool, and they have a ton of stuff. I've only had the chance to watch a few, and I really enjoyed it. The 9/11 one, I'm sure, is really interesting. Might even have to invite you back in the future just to talk about that, because that's a I have actually done a lot of research into the information on that and Building 7 and even the Pentagon, like you said. And I think 9/11 is important because it's one of those events that it's so obvious that the official story is not true, but it's so loaded, like people it's just got such controversy and stigma attached to it to even question that it could have been something else. But it's one of the, I think, best ways that we could just prove point blank, like, yo, we're being lied to at a massive scale. It's something this huge. And yeah, so that's cool. And that makes sense to me that that would really stick out to you. And you guys have so many other great topics. On that note, have you ever encountered a difficult or frightening situation during a session?
Yes, I have. So like one time, I really don't remember what I was remote viewing, but I remember I was tapping into a subject. This subject in particular, I tell you, the energy was like, it was like pure evil.
Mm,
It was dark. It was scary. I'm not gonna lie. It scared me. And I remember like after I remote viewed that I felt their energy on me, and it
mm,
followed me around. And it was like a solid 2 to 3 weeks
damn.
where I was always like kind of looking over my shoulder because I felt that subject in particular still watching me. It was almost like they followed my energy home and was watching me after I had watched them. You know what I mean? Like they're like,
Mm,
"No, let's see what you're doing."
wow.
And I didn't like the way it made me feel. It definitely, like, I felt like I needed to take a break because I did take a break from remote viewing after that. I needed a break. It was a lot. It was somewhere where he had committed like mass genocide on another planet, and then when I tapped into it, he was just like, "Yeah, I did that. I'll do it again. Where are you from?" And I was just like, "Oh no."
Damn.
So I
Wow.
didn't like that. That was really scary. I definitely took a break. I almost didn't come back to remote viewing after that because I felt like there's no way to protect myself energetically from the things that I see out there.
Mm,
So yeah, even now when I think about it's slightly triggering for sure.
wow.
I haven't encountered anything like that since.
Gotcha. And before we move on from that, can you share who the target was? You don't have to.
I do not remember. This was
Okay.
at least 3 years ago.
And it was some kind of extraterrestrial
It was
being.
some kind of extraterrestrial. I think he was like a general, like military person. And I think he was a reptilian of some kind. And I just remember just being disgusted. I didn't want to finish the project. Courtney was like, "Go ahead and finish, just finish, please." And
Mm,
after I finished it, I was like, "Don't, I'm good. Like, I'm good on all of this."
wow. Yeah, I can really understand how that would be really hard. Um, so, I was looking forward to asking this question. Have you been able to go to other planets or galaxies or even universes?
Just like on my own.
During a session, like, have you remote viewed other planets, other
Oh
gal
yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. I've seen so many, so many. I think one for me that really stuck out where there was a city type thing, but it was in this area that was like always in a storm. So it never stopped storming, it never stopped raining. It was cold. There was never sunlight,
Mm,
but there were I think they were grays. There were grays there, and then there was some sort of facility underneath where they were doing a lot of testing. But then on top, it kind of looked like a really enclosed small city.
mm,
And nobody like even came outside the structure, so they had some sort of underground connection that allowed everybody to stay inside at all times. And that was really cool to see. There was
oh,
another one where it was like really green all the time. It was sunny all the time, and the subjects there actually kind of looked like a different type of reptilian, not like the snake ones that we always see, but it was kind of more like an amphibian,
mm.
like a frog looking subject.
Oh, cool.
And then they were in like very tropical weather all the time. It was really interesting. I was like, where am
Mm.
I? This is cool. So those are the two that I do still remember.
That's cool. That sounds nice. What's the furthest back in time you think you've gone with remote viewing?
Um, that is a good question. Because I know that we recently had remote viewed kind of like something between the Greys and the Reptilians and how they started off having, I don't want to call it beef, but
Mm,
they started off having issues with each other. And I don't know when in time that was
okay.
at all, but I know it was before like any of them had came here to this planet, before we as humans existed on this planet. So I don't know when that was, way back in the day.
Okay. So could have been a really long time ago.
Yeah.
And what about into the future? How far do you think you've remote viewed?
Mm, I feel like into the future, not too far, like maybe 5, 10 years tops.
Okay. So
Tops. We
never
usually
did
go
something
into the past.
like a distant world. So most of your sessions are in the past.
Yeah, they're either in the past or they're things that are about to happen within the next like year or 2 or 3, something like that.
Okay. Cool. That that makes sense. So from your work that you've done so far, at this point, what would you say is the most significant takeaway that you've had from your remote viewing experience?
The most significant takeaway I've had is I don't trust anything anyone is talking about. I have seen things that people would tell me I'm crazy. Like they'll be like, you need help.
Mm, yeah.
You can't tell me elsewise. I've seen it, I've
Mm,
felt it, I
right.
heard it, I know that's there, I know that happened. So I don't even like to argue with people about those things, you know what I mean? There's no going back and forth.
Mhm.
You can believe what you want. I know what I saw, and I'm gonna leave it at that. So that's how I handle my remote viewing.
I totally understand that. The more that I've gone down this path of searching for truth, digging for it, I have come to that conclusion that it seems like the further you go, the more bizarre and strange things get, and the more insane it sounds, you know?
I do believe that there's something about this planet where we are not supposed to know the truth of the universe. The universe is so big, they're so vast. The amount of just like wars and atrocities that have just happened on this planet, to really believe that that has not happened anywhere else in the universe,
Mm,
I don't even entertain that. So I feel like there's something about this planet though where we're supposed to be like almost asleep at the wheel. We're supposed to just be having a good time. They're doing the works to make sure that we're not seeing maybe just how crazy it is out there.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. That is my preliminary assessment at this point. Find that's very plausible. Many signs point to that being the case, I think. So I agree with you. And yeah, so we're definitely could go into more detail with a lot of specifics, and I'm definitely going to have to invite you back to kind of delve into some of these topics. What I want to ask you is, what is your best advice or guidance to someone who wants to start learning how to remote view?
the best advice I can give you is to practice, is to not give up, um, is to have someone there as well to kind of hold you accountable and make sure that you're on target. Um, and mostly just don't give up. You know, everybody at Farsight, I can tell you, everybody at Farsight has wanted to give up. We've
Mm,
all been like, man, forget this. I don't want to do this anymore. And then it just becomes a part of you. Or I can't even act like that part of me doesn't exist.
mm,
And so, as much as I at some point didn't want to remote view anymore, wanted to just give up and not have to deal with it, or it was getting frustrating. And like there was a moment of time too where I was off target. I was off target. Like every time I did a session, I was off target and I was frustrated
mm,
because I'm like, I don't know why. Like, why am I off target? Why isn't this working? Um, I had a lot of other things going on in life
mhm,
that were kind of intersecting that. So, like, because when you remote view, you hit that unconscious aspect of yourself. If you have a lot of things that may be like unresolved, or you're going through things in life and you're kind of pushing it down, that stuff comes back up when you are remote viewing. And so, I might have been dealing with something and it was just coming up every time. I'm just like, something I'm thinking about that's happened in real life, I'm writing down on paper. I'm thinking it's in my session because it's a thought. And when I'm remote viewing, if it's a thought, write it down. But it's not the thoughts of what's there, it's my deep down unconscious mind talking at me. And that's
mhm.
also why it's important to meditate before you start a remote viewing session, because you want to quiet that aspect of your mind down too. So don't give up, meditate, and just make sure you got somebody there to support you.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like very sound advice.
I try.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing. I want to ask you the one topic I do want to ask you about, because it's what actually drew me in to checking out Farsight, doing the membership, watching the videos, and then that's how I found you, and then was able to find your contact information and ask you for this interview. And the topic, it's one that I've spent a lot of time researching and I have a lot of materials on, and it's an ongoing thing I'm researching, but it's Operation Highjump. And I just wanted to ask you, Operation Highjump, the Antarctic Nazi base, that whole story, anything that you could share or like your takeaways from that session that you did?
I actually don't recall the session.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I really don't. I think for me, whenever I do sessions, it's important to let them go. So
Yeah.
I don't sit around and think about them often. I do let them go. So if you could just refresh my memory, it would help me tap into kind of what exactly you're talking about.
Yeah. So there's a string of evidence and some, circumstantial evidence that, and a theory that the Nazis went down to Antarctica at the end of World War II, kind of like moved all of their secret technology there, set up an underground base. And then in 1947, the US sent a Navy operation led by Admiral Byrd to go down there. And officially, it was just for scientific and military training. But people say that they were going down there to find the base and kind of do something about it. And so that's kind of the gist of it. If you don't remember, it's
I kind
fine.
of
It's fine.
I was gonna say I kind of do remember that. I remember in Antarctica one where we were underground, and they had like tunnels and different stuff, and there were um, machines and man-made objects, and a lot of it felt like destructive objects underground, being kept and hoarded. Um, as far as any other details, I do not remember right now, and I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
That's
I'm
great.
so
No,
sorry about that.
I mean, for me, that's a testament to the authenticity of your work is, you're not even categorizing necessarily these things and these different theories and events. You're kind of just in the moment with it. And like you said, letting go of it. So to me, that just comes off as genuine.
Yeah, I tell y'all what I found in that moment, and then I'm like, all right, I gotta leave it where I found it in that moment.
Nice.
But that was the first time I think I ever actually even considered that people were in Antarctica. Like I know I hear, we hear they have stuff going on over there. I'm like, girl, it's freezing. There's nothing over there. I watched the documentaries of Antarctica. I've seen that there's nothing out there. But then I do remember doing a session of Antarctica. But I remember one where we did like there was pyramids out there though.
Mm.
There's pyramids in Antarctica. And that's what's on top. And then there is something kind of at the bottom underground too. And so then I started telling people like, girl, you don't know what's out there in Antarctica. As far as I'm concerned, we can't go to Antarctica for a reason. They got other stuff going on out there. I tell everybody that now. Before I was like, it's freezing, we just can't go.
Yeah.
Nah, they hiding stuff over there for sure.
Yeah. It seems like Antarctica's got some secrets and maybe they're starting to seep out a little bit. A couple whistleblowers, a couple of discoveries made.
I think also because like everything's kind of melting too. There's a lot of stuff that maybe they hid away 100 years ago that are just unfortunately just coming out. It's melting. It's coming out. I can't help but see it. People can't help but notice.
Yeah.
And we no longer live in a place where you can just tell somebody that that's not there and they'll believe you. We've got cameras, we've got footage, we've got personal stories, people taking their own cameras out there. And I love that too. I love that. Remote viewing can be very overwhelming. When you start telling people a lot of things that they don't believe to be true, it can be a lot to take in all at once.
Yeah. I totally agree. Well, thank you so much, Kahmia, for coming on and sharing your experience with remote viewing. It's really interesting. It's been really nice to talk to you and would love to have you back to talk more about it in the future.
Yeah, I would love to come back and speak to y'all later at some time.
Sounds good. Thank you. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.